everybody, it's me, Jose Seguros, me, President. Welcome to another episode of Fireside Chat with the President. Now, in this episode, we're going to focus exclusively on transfers. It's that time of the year. It's transfer season. A lot of you got a lot of questions, so let's go through it. Now, go back to the email this video was attached to. You'll actually see links to documents that will describe a lot of the really important elements that go along with transfers and how transfers are handled within the San Maria Bonita School District and consistent with our current contract language. So we're going to break this down to 4 parts, right? So our 4 parts are going to be let's see, what are the elements of a transfer season? Terms to know, what are important words that you need to know they mean? Do you own your position or not? Super important question. And what are the rules for temps and probes? So let's get started. Elements of the transfer season include both site postings and district postings. So let's make something super clear from the very beginning. There's only one type of seniority in our district, and that is district seniority. In other words, how long have you been in the district as a certificated educator? Doesn't matter how long you've been at your site, doesn't matter how long you've been even in your particular position, but just as a certificated person within the school district, how long have you been here? So that's the only seniority that matters, and we'll get to that in a little bit. We have site transfers. Site transfers are when we look at individual work sites as a microcosm or a self-contained unit. And so when we compete at our site for open vacancies, we compete using criteria like credential and needs and previous experience, but also that's where seniority comes in. Not how long you've been at the site, but how long have you been in the district. And then the next element is the district-wide postings. That's when the district takes all the positions, all the vacancies that are not filled at your site, at all the sites, and then they post them out so that all members across the district can compete for these district-wide posted positions. And again, it's district seniority that we would use as part of the criteria to determine who gets these transfers, and not job-specific seniority or site-specific seniority, because those two things don't exist in our district. The district is going to do 4 rounds of transfers. Then 1 round includes both site postings and district postings. Site postings are a 5-day process. So day 1, let's say it's a Monday, your site administrator will post out all the vacancies that they're expecting at your site next year. As folks at your site put in for those positions, for those vacancies, that's going to create a new vacancy, right? So if I am a 3rd grade teacher and I put in for a 5th grade position, transferred to a 5th grade position, and I'm the only one that gets that, then that's going to leave my current position available, right? So site postings work in 3 phases. There's a 72-hour or a 3-day phase, and then there's the 2nd phase, which is a 1-day, and then there's the 3rd phase, which is 1 additional day. So 3 days, 1 day, and 1 day for a total of 5 days posting at the site. So as an example, in those first 3 days, I'm teaching 3rd grade. I put in for a 5th grade spot. I get that spot within that first 3 days. Great. But that leaves my 3rd grade position. So on that 2nd phase, which is just a 1 24-hour phase, my empty 3rd grade spot is going to be offered up to everybody at the site. So let's say a teacher in kinder decides if they want that 3rd grade position and they get that transfer. Great. Then on the 5th day, which is the 3rd phase of the 5 days, then that kinder position is going to post because now it's vacant, and everybody gets a chance to compete for it. Now, let's say nobody puts in for that kinder position. So at the end of the 5 days, that kinder position is still available. That's when we move into the 5 days of district-wide postings. District-wide postings occur in 1 phase, and that phase includes all 5 days. So that kinder position at my site will be posted so that all members across the district who have an interest in that kinder position may compete for that position. At the end of those 5 days, Human Resources will look at all of the names that have come in to transfer into the available vacancies. They'll line everybody up who is competing for that particular vacancy and determine who will receive it based on the criteria that's in our contract, which includes things like your credential, other experiences, and of course, seniority. That's basically the process. So let's get into the terms. Like, what are the important terms that you need to know in order to understand the process here? Let's start with transfer. And I'm going to read right from the contract. It says a transfer is defined as a change in the member's assignment from one site to another site. So technically, that's what we refer to as a transfer. If I leave Miller and go to Battles, that's considered a transfer. And then we have involuntary transfers. An involuntary transfer is defined as a transfer initiated by the district, which removes a member from the member's existing site. An involuntary transfer will not be made in an arbitrary or capricious manner. So if I'm teaching third grade at Miller and they decide to downsize the number of third grade classes, I am the low man on the totem pole, the least seniority, so I'm displaced. There are no other vacancies at my site for me to transfer into, so I am forced to seek a vacancy somewhere else at a different site. I'll be considered an involuntary transfer. Now, the one caveat to all that is some of you out there have involuntary transfer rights. You receive those because you were forced out of positions or forced to change school sites sometime in the past. If somebody has an involuntary transfer right, you should have already notified the district that you may be interested in using it this year. And what that does is that puts you to the front of the line when you compete for both site vacancies and district-wide vacancies. It puts you at the front of the line in terms of you don't have to worry about having more seniority than somebody else, things like that. You automatically move to the front of the line. And really the only people you're competing against for those vacancies is other folks who also may have involuntary transfer rights who want to fill the same vacancy that you do. And then the third term is voluntary transfer. Now, voluntary transfer is anything that you step up to do, right? If I agree to go to take a position at Battles and I'm working currently at Miller, then I'm volunteering to take that or fill that vacancy. I would only be considered an involuntary transfer if I had to leave my site. If there are other vacancies at my site that I qualify to teach at other grade levels, then I'm obligated to compete for one of those and would not be considered an involuntary transfer. And then the last one is the reassignment. And a reassignment is defined as a change in a member's teaching assignment from one grade to another at the same site, or from one subject or department to another at the same site. So during site postings, I go from third grade to fifth grade. That is simply a reassignment. It is not considered a transfer. All right. Next, we have to own or not to own. And this one confuses people, but it's basically a simple process to determine whether or not you own a position. You own a position if that position had previously been posted either at the site or district-wide, and then you competed for that position along with your peers. If you competed in a position that was posted and you received it, then you own it. If you're new to the district, just came in last year, if the position that you currently hold had been posted at sites, nobody took it, posted district-wide, nobody took it, then HR essentially owns that position. They can put anybody they want into there, and that person would then own it, right? So HR takes all those vacancies that nobody wants or that nobody transfers into, and they can fill it however they choose, including hiring new folks from the outside. Now, if the position that you're currently in was never posted, folks who were existing or ongoing members never had an opportunity to compete for it, then you do not own that position. If you're not sure whether you own or not, contact Human Resources Department. Temps and probes. What are your rights as a temporary teacher or a probationary teacher? And I know this is confusing sometimes, so let's just kind of get down to it. Temporary teachers and probationary one, we'll put them into one category. Probationary two is kind of a second category, and then we have our permanent members. If you're a temporary or probationary one, you essentially are agreeing to year work. In other words, the district is under no obligation to continue your contract from this year to the next, regardless of how well you were evaluated during the current year. They can release you without giving you any reason for it. They can simply just thank you for your service and ask you to move on. That is how education code is written, that during those first couple of years, essentially the district kind of has all the power when it comes to whether or not folks retain their position. Now, they can't release you for something that's discriminatory, right? So we still have those rights. They can't release you because you're gay or you're straight or you're pregnant or you have a disability or you're Catholic or you're whatever it happens to be. If you're a member of a protected class, you cannot be discriminated against in the workplace. And so these laws, of course, don't protect the district from using them that way. But generally speaking, absent any kind of a discriminatory act by your employer, you can be released as a temp or a probe one. You should get a letter that is essentially a thank you for your service letter. And it probably would include some ed code that reiterates to you that the district has the right to release you on a year-to-year. Now, if the district wants to retain you for the following year, you probably will get some kind of follow-up letter that says, oh, but by the way, we really want to ask you back. We want to retain you for the following year. And here's the particular position that you're going to be retained in. And it may be the current position that you're in. Because you could own a position and still be a temp or a pro. Because remember, owning has only to do with how the position was flown. It has nothing to do with the employee's individual status, whether you're a pro or a temp or a permanent employee. So owning has nothing to do with employment status. It only has to do with whether or not that particular vacancy was posted properly and folks had an opportunity to compete for it or not. All right. And so you could be a permanent employee and not own a position. You could be a temp and own a position. So anyway, the district will communicate with you whether or not they want to retain you for the following year and in what position that you will be retained in. If you owned, it'll be the position you currently have. If you don't own, they would invite you to do things like attend the transfer fair, stuff like that, in order to find a vacancy that fits your needs. Let's see. And can I participate in the transfer fair? Yes, absolutely. Anybody who's going to be here next year can participate in the transfer fair. If you receive a release letter and the district is not expecting you to return next year, then no, you do not participate in the transfer fair. But temps can participate, probes can participate in the transfer fair. Now, there is a newer category that's growing in our district of employees, and that is our probe zeros. Probe zeros are our intern members. Probe zeros, you're a little bit different because essentially you've agreed to work on a single contract year. So the expectation is that once your contract expires at the end of the year, so does your employment with the district. I don't believe folks can be a probe zero more than 2 years or an intern more than 2 years. We do have a separate salary schedule because these folks are also considered uncredentialed, and you can't work within that, I believe, more than 2 years. And then you either move on or you complete your credentialing program and you obtain your preliminary credential. And so if you are a probe zero, an intern or uncredentialed person, then the expectation that you should have is that your employment with the district will expire at the end of this year, unless one, you obtain your preliminary credential, or two, the district offers you a second year of internship. If you go back to the email this video was attached to, you'll see links to some document boxes. If you click on any of those content boxes, it'll take you to a much larger graphic that includes all kinds of information about transfer season, and it'll repeat a lot of things that I've just said to you here. But I really want you to understand what your rights and responsibilities are so that you're making good choices when it comes to transfers, that you know where you stand as an employee. All right. Okay, that's all I got for you. Again, please go back to the email this video was attached to. Take a look at those documents that are linked. A lot of information there. If you have any more questions, if there's questions that are not answered in that document, please feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. All right, everybody, have a great 4-day weekend. Enjoy it. You deserve it. It's all yours to enjoy. Do things that bring you joy. Do things that are relaxing. It might rain a little bit this weekend, so stay dry. And we'll see you all soon. Bye, everybody.